KBBBL podcast. Where the extra B is for BYOBB.
Where's my elephant?
There's my elephant. Welcome to KBBBL podcast, where the extra B is for BYOBB. But what's that extra B for?
This week's extra B is for bring help because I have the plague and I'm super sick. So, please help me in any way you can or stay away. I should be quarantined probably, but is what it is.
If anyone out there can quarantine Francis, we'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I am your Quidgy host, Davan, and with me is the Thunder Perfect Mind over here, Alex Baker, and Kid Gruesome himself.
I like it.
Matthew Francis. He used to be Kid Presentable.
First was Kid Gorgeous.
Ugly.
Well,
First was Kid Gorgeous, then Kid Presentable, then Kid Gruesome, finally Kid Mo.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we are here to review Season 1, Episode 2, Bart the Genius. We're getting into it, fellas.
Yeah, man.
Christmas is over. Well, not for me. But
this is... Yeah. You
Davan
got a bit of a Christmas celebration coming up for the youngin'.
Davan just has
her birthday was yesterday.
Wearing that hat.
Yeah,
that's why you're wearing the hat.
Yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday to your daughter, Davan.
Happy birthday to your daughter. She's 2 years old, and this is the second episode of our show, so it's actually pretty apropos. Although I would like to point out, this is the second episode, but debatably this is the first traditional episode, because the first episode, Roasting Over an Open Fire, that was kind of a holiday themed episode. This is the first episode that's just a generic The Simpsons. It's the first episode that has the intro, like the full intro. So, breaking new ground.
With a cool glass of turnip juice.
Let us gather under the turnip tree a moment here, fellas. What's your BYOBB, Francis?
Today I have the Propeller IPA. Again, another staple microbrew from Halifax. I remember, I don't know. You remember 15 years ago, Davan, because we're old as fuck, when there was only 3 microbreweries, and it was Propeller, Granite, and Garrison. It was all you could get. Yeah. And Propeller had the IPA is the one you could buy before when hipster culture was in its infancy in the city and punks and metalheads ruled the underground. This is what we drank. Anyway, we're back to that tonight.
Unless we were kegging, then it was a Garrison Amber.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm disappointing. I don't have an actual tall boy, but I did pick out one that I wanted to shout out, and I will maybe bring it in addition to another beer, just as a little bonus next episode. But I'll mention it. Davan, you went to the brewery last episode. It's 9 Locks, just down the road from where I live. The perhaps somewhat notorious Dirty Blonde kicked up a bit of a stir due to the name.
Is notorious.
Some people have described my hair as dirty blonde, so I don't quite get why it's so shameful. But it's a delicious little light blonde beer. So there you go. About 5%, 473 milliliters, and 12 IBU.
Good to know.
There you go.
Every milliliter more delicious than the last.
Indeed. If I trade you 473 milliliters of my Dirty Blonde for, I don't know, I'm not really good with metrics, but if I was, follow that joke through in your head, everybody, and give yourself a chuckle.
Yeah, we're relying on the listeners a lot here to make us funny. So visualize these jokes being hilarious.
It's podcast volleyball, we're just sending them some really nice, easy, soft volleys, and then it's up to you guys at home to knock it back.
Sam listened to the last episode 3 times last week. I mean, that's good advice for everybody. We're probably better
we appreciate it. Bumping up our numbers.
There's a lot of nuance you might have missed on the first listen. So I recommend 5, to be perfectly honest. That would be my sweet spot for listening. What do you got there, Dev?
This is an experiment for me. I've never had it before. It's Picaroon's like white summer ale. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not really a wheat white beer kind of guy, but this one's pretty good.
You are tonight.
Yeah, I'm
changing it up.
So, it was my baby's birthday yesterday. What's new with you guys?
You want to go first, Francis?
Not too much. As I mentioned, sick. So the boy's been sick all week. We had him out of school 3 of the 5 days this week, and he finally went back yesterday. And then guess what? I caught the cold. Hooray!
No.
Disease bag in my house.
I'm just getting over mine.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, other than that, the usual day-to-day working dad life bullshit. You guys?
Yeah. Well, I hope that you're feeling better soon. As for me, just chugging along at the museum. I'm doing a presentation on bats for 5th graders coming up. So that should be kind of fun. They presented me with a list of like 10 questions about bats. Some of them are relevant, like echolocation, and others are a little more out there, but still fun. There's no questions directly related to vampirism, but they did ask about vampire bats. So yeah, that'll be cool. And aside from that, I got another tattoo today. I did.
Oh my.
I'm still here. I didn't pass out and ruin our podcasting episode.
So is this okay. This isn't like a continuation of the big one on your back? This is brand new, like a totally different piece?
Yeah, it's a different piece with a different artist. His name is Mike Peters. You can find him on Instagram, I think just under as Mike, MYKE _tattooer, something to that effect. He's very talented as well. And yeah, I've been working with a lot of different artists across the city, I suppose. The back tattoo is going to be continued soon, but this was just a standalone kind of dinosaur tattoo. It's pretty goofy, but I don't know. I have no rhyme or reason for them. I just pick images that I think are kind of cool and go with it.
You know what I love though, Alex? Like I love when I meet people where it's like, you're like a pretty mild mannered guy, but if you like take off your shirt, you're like fucking tatted up like a Yakuza lieutenant. Like,
oh man, that's the idea. It's to offset my kind of mild disposition. So yeah, that's what's up with me. Stoked to talk about this episode for sure.
Well, yeah, I suppose we should get into that. I forgot to call you guys your bunch of quidgy-bows. No, I'm the quidgy.
Oh, no. We can all be quidgy-bows. That's fine.
No, you guys aren't quidgy-bows. You guys are just a couple of chair moisteners.
Oh, well, that's not very nice.
No, I'm just kidding. I know. I'm sorry, fellas. Just a
yuck.
Hang of my intros.
A real putz. Just like The Simpsons is getting a hang of its rhythm as well. We're seeing in the second episode a continued kind of working out by the different writers and cast of the show what it is The Simpsons is going to be as a continuing sitcom. Every episode being kind of like a situation. There's some continuity, but every episode is roughly speaking kind of on a standalone. So we're working out the kinks. They're working out the kinks.
Here's something we should talk about on this one. I call this segment introspection.
It's reverb.
If we happen to notice something in the intro.
Well, it's reverb to hell. Alex, you had mentioned last episode about the blue saxophone. I noticed it this time on the intro. And then I noticed watching, there were some extra clips, like the animation, like there was extras in the intro, like bodies moving back. I don't know. I can't remember it all to like describe it, but I wasn't sure if that was traditionally there or I was watching it on Disney Plus. I'm like, was that just like something that was like an extra that was in this version they put up, or would you see that had just come on like CBC, right?
I have the answer for you. Davan, do you know why this intro is a little different than the one we're more familiar with?
No, just that I thought it was just a gag they were doing.
Well, that part is a gag, But the version of the intro we see in this episode is about 35 seconds, roughly. Someone in the chat, like Sam, can check, but I believe about that length, and that's the longest version you really get in The Simpsons. Groening and the cast, or like the creative developers of the show, they cooked up the idea of having as long an intro as they possibly could to basically cheat on the minutes for the show. If they had like little time, like they were like, we could either come up with like a 30-second joke, or we could just add like a little bit to one of the commercial breaks and a little bit to the intro to like work it out to 23 minutes. So yeah,
I wonder if somehow this sort of thinking is where the whole coach gag kind of came out of, which is like
it is.
We can tweak the intro, we can play with it, and then eventually they landed on like the couch gag thing.
Very astute. That is, I think, also true. The first couch gag was conceived as part of the lengthening of the story, and then it became, I think it grew out of that to be like every week they can do a different couch gag. This is also the only time that the couch gag sequences from the intro to the television that the Simpsons are watching. So that's kind of interesting. They kind of changed that up going forward to give them more freedom, I guess, with the different kinds of couch gags they do.
Did you happen to notice what Bart was writing on the chalkboard?
What was he writing, Gavin?
I will not waste chalk.
That seems like a very good, like very kind of prophetic intro, because Bart is a prankster, and obviously it's meant to be ironic. Bart, he's wasting chalk in that one session, but he's going to waste a lot of chalk going forward. Every single episode, the chalk gag, we're going to see it different. That's a lot of chalk.
Also,
chalk ivory.
Real quick, I should have said this at the start, but like when my camera goes off, I'm just like sneezing or blowing my nose or something else gross, or shooting myself in the fucking head, one of those things. So it's fine.
Right.
Okay, that's good to know. I wasn't sure if that was a technical thing. You're just saving the audience from seeing your.
It's very quick on the draw, Francis. It's a fine job.
Yeah, that's why they call it.
Perhaps you are not a
Quidgy-bo.
What is a Quidgy-bo, Davan?
Well, it's a North American ape. It's balding, no chin. So there could be tons of chin under here. So I certainly probably am not even a Quidgy-bo, because I also am not balding. But who knows? Well, let's get into.
Are you oxidizing, maybe? All right, let's get into it.
Don't mind if I do.
Hamamana. Let's get into the episode breakdown, Hamamana. So it starts off, Simpsons are playing some Scrabble. That's where we get the great zingers like old Quidgy-bo there.
Quidgy-bo.
But they're also trying to figure.
Can we have that a recurring soundbite? Like beyond this episode, I think the Quidgy-bo callback is
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely going to keep some around. Like this one, for example. This one will be sticking around.
Eat my shorts.
Naturally, you got to keep eating my shorts.
Yeah. He tends to say that a lot, doesn't he?
So Bart thinks he's won with Quidgy-bo. He got triple word score, plus getting rid of all his letters. Lots of points there. Plus K. K's like an 8-point letter. Lots of points to get off K.
He uses all his letters, so that's extra points as well.
Quidgy-bo on the loose.
It establishes the different tones of the characters, doesn't it? Because one, Bart cuts the corners, and he's a prankster. He's making fun of his father, and he's bored. He doesn't want to play the educational game. Homer's an idiot and doesn't recognize oxidize, right? And he's a he works at
so he spells do.
Power plant.
He's like, I have one. Dude.
Yeah, and then Marge
and oxidize would be huge points as well. Like oxidize would be like amazing.
O and X and I, all the good letters in Scrabble. And then Marge is very simple. I can't recall what is the word that Marge comes up with, but it's like E or something.
No, that's Lisa. That was Lisa.
Yeah, because it establishes that she is the most intelligent Simpson, which is interesting because of the subject matter of this episode. Sorry.
Oh, Marge, look at that id thing in the dictionary. He's like, we have one of those.
But it's what is it? It's like propping up the table or the chair or something like that.
The next day they're in class and Bart being Bart. See, Bart just does so many Bart things in these early episodes. Where he's spray painting, he's always cheating on tests. He's just Bart, cheating at Scrabble.
Yeah.
But it's neat they do that because like we've all seen it so long that we take Bart as like the prankster and that sort of thing. Take it for granted that that's his character. It's like you're saying, Alex, this is part of us. Like the second episode, this is part of them establishing their roles, even as the writers are feeling it out. But this is part of them like determining where these people fit, and they're laying the groundwork for that, right? Stuff that we're just used to knowing because we've been watching it our whole lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bart bursting onto the scene.
So he's
The preferred spelling of wiener is W-I-E-N-E-R, although E-I is an acceptable ethnic variant.
Good point.
Is it a good point?
Oh my god, that's it. See, I forgot my whole thing, and that's why I had to go with chair moisteners way too late in the intro. I was gonna call you guys acceptable ethnic variants.
I like that. That's funny.
I know. And
all right, well, it's funny for you to
2 episodes in and I blew it.
I don't know if it's appropriate for Martin to characterize it as an ethnic variant. Maybe you could say like it's different vernacular depending on the region. But I guess this is the 90s, we're seeing a little bit of a different attitude towards some of these subjects.
He's like Skinner there. Good point.
Yeah. Bart, not a genius, clearly, though. He's spelling wiener incorrectly.
Oh, man, he's just using an ethnic variant. That's like extra, like smart.
Yeah, if anything, he's being more intellectual.
Mm-hmm. I guess so.
Took Martin to get the depth of his joke.
Yeah. Yeah, see, you guys are just as much of a reach as Bart with Kujibo there, I think. But it's okay, I can buy it.
Yeah, so Bart, gets told to go to Skinner's office after school. It's like same time, same place.
Again, establishing this like delinquent behavior of Bart.
Should we talked about Skinner.
He's quite funny in this episode.
Yeah, this is the introduction of Martin, really.
And he's pretty great. I like when he walks up to Bart and he's just like, I hope you're not, holding some small-minded grudge. Like, you're just digging at him, even like when he's trying to apologize to him.
No, it's interesting because when a lot of the early episodes, you see characters who aren't really characters yet. So Martin's Martin from the start, but he's kind of a dick. Like he's condescending, he's insulting. Which once he gets more developed, he's not like that.
Has that changed though? Isn't he?
No, he's more of a mincing, passive. Like he gets
he becomes much more. He becomes much more aloof. Like he doesn't realize that people don't like him for being a nerd. Like he's just how he is. The fact that he's he's intentionally malicious with Bart at points in this episode is like something you don't see once they really make his character into the Martin we know, right?
Yeah, I would argue Bart gets the last laugh. We'll get into that, but I don't think Martin has a great time this episode.
It's like, teacher, isn't Bart supposed to turn his desk around in case he can't help himself but look off his neighbor's paper?
But what about the naughty dogs? He's gonna see the naughty dogs.
Yeah,
I thought about calling you guys naughty dogs too.
I'll take it. Right, well, when he's outside and he's making faces at Bart in the window, there's this dickhead side to his genius that just isn't there later, right?
Yeah. Man, he's a real jerk.
And fellas, I was a lot like the Bart Simpson in the class in my youth, because where Bart has to turn his desk, I actually had to sit behind an entire bookshelf. Like there was like the classroom, and then there's the bookshelf where you go hang your coats. My desk was back there, so I wouldn't disturb the class like Bart. So I was a lot like Bart as a youth.
Yeah, I was maybe a Bart,
not as dumb
hybrid. I was a bit of a nerdy kid, and probably retrospectively a bit of a know-it-all, like keen to answer questions, which again,
me too.
In retrospect, kind of like I can see why other kids were like, "This fucking this nerd, teacher's pet. But I also did have a bit of a rambunctious side as well. I was a bit of a prankster. I would get in trouble. I was sent to the office a bunch of times in elementary school through to really high school for just disrupting class by joking around.
These tests will have no effect on your grades. They merely determine your future social status and financial success, if any.
Crabapple.
I love
she's
the
great
dryness.
because she does not care. She's so cool.
She's a great character anyway, but like even in this, like just the dryness of the humor, like in this, they're definitely speaking more to the adults, being like, this is the futility of like the class you're in and all this kind of stuff. It's not a big deal. It's just like going to determine all of your future success, and like also the weight they put on these like tests that we now know are like basically bullshit and don't really determine anything.
I know.
I like the dryness of the whole exchange with the tests and everything.
Yeah, testing has become less and less relevant in like the elementary and high school levels.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Francis. And yeah, I agree with you, Davan. It's actually kind of was a weird cultural I don't know if shock's the right word, but it was weird to watch because even in my time, like there was no real emphasis on, these are the tests that are going to determine what career you must take. We did something roughly to that effect, but I remember it wasn't very serious and not at all like The Simpsons. Certainly didn't have one at that grade.
Yeah, like the closest thing for our generation, and we didn't even really experience this where we're Canadian, would have been like the SATs. But that was like grade 12, and that was kind of like
we just had exams.
Yeah, that was
the
like
end of the year.
But none of them were like, hey, this is like to predetermine your future.
No.
This is aptitudes for fitting you into society. It was just like it's just a test of the curriculum, right?
That's right. We don't have those aptitude tests in Canada, eh?
They think I'm slow, eh?
Oh man, I forget what season it is. It's far from now, so I feel comfortable referencing it. But the Canadian basketball team is a classic gag. That was close. You can be center.
Then gives teachers pathetic excuse notes that are obviously childish forgeries when compared to.
That's a great visual
gag. Bart wasn't actually doing that. That's Principal Skinner's bag.
To answer Sam.
Yeah, so Bart beats on the tests.
If Sam was wondering who's dumber, I think that kind of establishes that probably Homer's dumber, right?
Than Bart?
Than Bart,
yeah. Bart's smarter than
Bart's
Homer.
pretty clever. He just doesn't apply himself. Yep. He's kind of like a Calvin, if anyone's familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, where he's like this hyperactive, over-imaginative kid who doesn't do well with structure or rules. Mm-hmm. But he has a certain brightness about him, I think.
Yeah, he's clever in his own
know how to deal with those types of kids. The late 80s, early 90s, and even before that didn't really know how to deal with such a thing. Now they probably do, at least I hope. So then they call in this guy. Where is he? Hold on one sec. There he is.
Ah, the good doctor.
What's this guy's name? Do we know?
Yeah, I can pull it up here right now.
Yeah, he's in future episodes. He's got to have a name, and he's using that.
Yeah, he's using phrenology, Dr. Pryor,
which is long debunked. I'm pretty sure, is it not?
Yeah, even by the time of The Simpsons, it was debunked. I think it's supposed to be kind of like a goofy visual.
Yeah.
Definitely not an accurate way to determine intelligence.
Look, there's your answer. Who's smarter? Just look at them.
Yeah. Bart's got quite the overbite in that animated shot.
Well, they and their arms were a lot longer and stuff too. They're still working on the animation.
Yeah. How'd this one do for you, Francis? I know last episode kind of you were frustrated a bit with some of the animation.
Well, look, we're gonna rank this at the end. Right. We forgot to do the first
episode,
but we're gonna rank them. We're gonna rank.
Keep stepping on your toes. Go ahead.
The animation isn't. I mean, the animation, it is what it is. I'm going to shit on it because that's just who I am. But I want to make a point about something they did in this episode, and it's not unique to The Simpsons, but it's like what you see in comedy and in television right around this time, like late 80s, early to mid 90s, and like the way they portray intellectualism. So in this exact episode, there's basically two camps. There's a camp of the doctor here and the teacher at the special school he goes to, who are supposed to be intellectuals, but by all means are still too naive to realize that Bart's actually an idiot, not a genius. And then you have like Martin and the other kids at the school who are total dicks to Bart for not being as smart as they are. And like I get that there's this underlying thing of like, it's good to be who you are. You can be comfortable with that. But like I find like a lot of series around this time, like when it comes to people of a higher intelligence, they're portrayed in one of these ways, like either being totally aloof and naive and out of touch, or being portrayed as just being assholes who are condescending. And like I think it speaks to this larger like cultural thing in the States or maybe North America period, where it's just like, yo, this like
nerds
of intellectualism, like
stereotyping. We see a lot of stereotyping in The Simpsons. That's something we should definitely we can continue to track as the season develops. Obviously, there's been some controversy surrounding certain characters being stereotypes, which we'll get into as it goes along.
So, he brings in Dr. Jaemeel Pryor. Oh, ad. Oh, get out here, ad. Oh my God. If you guys couldn't hear that. You guys hear that?
I didn't hear any ads, so don't worry.
Okay. Hopefully it goes away so I don't have to listen to it. All right. Oh my God, it's so distracting. Hold on, fellas. I got to find this ad and make it die.
We're going to have to get some kind of machine to automate Davan. Just like how the KBBBL radio station gets a machine to automate.
My God, that was terrible. All right, I'm back. Back.
Davan, do you mean you're not paying for and clearing all these samples?
Someone get me Lionel Hutz.
I don't know nothing.
I need a drink, and I know he's got one.
I've seen him. That is to say, I saw him.
That is to say, I've seen it. So he calls in Dr. Jaemeel Pryor, and he thinks he's going to tell them that Bart is like stupid and a problem, but he's like, no, Bart's a genius, actually.
IQ of 216.
961?
Yeah, again, Homer's dumber.
Yeah. I would think so. So then they decide they're going to have to send him to a new school for smart kids.
Right.
Do you ever dream of leaving your class to pursue your own intellectual development on an independent basis?
Wow, Doc. He's like, you're reading my mind. First he's like, are you ever bored in class, Bart?
All the time.
What's funny is how bad Skelhorn Pryor is at his job.
Almost comically bad. Like he doesn't do any like due diligence to follow through on whether or not Bart actually has an IQ of 216. One test.
He just asks the most basic questions, like that every kid would say.
Skinner is literally like, I think we should retest him, and he's like, no, we should put him in the special school. But Skinner likes that because he gets rid of him.
He's like, that's cool.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, Skinner, what a character! Because he knows firsthand how much Bart causes trouble, and probably knows well enough that Bart doesn't have an IQ of 216. Yeah. Come on, but he just wants to get the troublemaker out of there. They've already alluded to the fact he's always disciplining Bart.
See, but I love Skinner because he you don't see this yet. But eventually, when they decide to give him this like dark underbelly of being like a non-vet who's in a POW camp, and they give him this like two-faced alter ego, I love how they do that with him down the line.
Armin Tanzarian.
Yeah, Armin Tanzarian. There's a lot of amazing Skinner lore that we will get to see unfold. It's great. Yeah.
So now we're at the next morning at breakfast, and Homer's just telling Lisa to eat what Bart eats so she can be smart like him.
Which is crusty.
Probably Krusty O's.
Yeah.
he's like, maybe
find like a metal jagged one in his Krusty O's at one point.
Yeah, we'll get to that too.
But in this one, he's like trying to figure out why it makes Bart smart, and he's like, maybe it's one of these chemicals in here.
Ingredients. There's a lot of chemicals and laboratory stuff happening in this episode. It's quite fun. So
then they send Bart off to the Enriched Learning Center for Gifted Children. Almost sounds like the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, doesn't it? And they're there with their teacher, Miss Milan.
Is it Miss Milan or Miss Mellon? Do they pronounce it Milan?
Called Miss Mel. She calls herself Miss. She pronounces it Miss Milan.
That's got to be a joke, though, right? It's just like
definitely
is a crab apple.
She's a melon.
Simpsons loves to do that. We talked about Dr. Zitsovsky, and now we're seeing she's a melon head, right? Like she's, again, I think kind of like she's smart, clearly. She's teaching these gifted children, but she's also kind of clueless as to like, the actual needs Bart requires and his states, and where he's coming from and all that stuff.
But again, it's this farce on intellectuals. Like, hey, she's a melon head, so she's Miss Melon, but of course you would pronounce it Milan. Like, you know what I mean? It's this like it's this
French. It's so fancy.
It's this what's the word I'm looking for? Not
bourgeois.
Yeah, it's like this bourgeois. It's this making fun of them, like, you know what I mean? This calling them, over the top, unnecessary sort of thing, right?
Just putting on their transatlantic accent.
I will say very briefly, she is a minor recurring character. She does appear after this. She goes on until about season 7. Don't really know why they cut her, aside from the fact she's just kind of a background character, and they had more interesting characters.
School nobody goes to.
She was in the Bartman music video, which I don't know if we want to talk about that now, but we should talk
today.
About it.
We'll get there.
Real quick, though,
I'll make a segment for that.
Where else is she, though? I don't remember her. Like, what other episodes? Like,
I can draw up a list. Yeah, I don't think she's like a major character in any of them, but let me get...
Yeah, I mean, don't waste your time, but if you got it right there.
Fellas. Drabbing Norduke.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. We can follow up on that later.
We can do Jupiter for my lunch, for the weight of a feather on the second moon of Neptune from your lunch.
Seems fair.
That's right, folks. Different moons of Neptune have different features.
One was the moon of Jupiter, Baker.
Have you checked the science on this, Baker, though? Are these accurate riffs that they're giving them?
I checked the science on this one for my science segment later.
Trade you 1,000.
That's why I didn't, because I know Davan does it.
Fair enough. I'll just mum's the word. We'll get there.
Yeah.
I didn't bother doing the weights on Jupiter because I didn't have time to do those calculations, because it's not like they were going to give me the answer of a bowling ball and a feather, so I would have had to do all these mad calculations.
It's a toss-up. Do you think that the writers cared enough to actually get it right? That's the real question. And I
this
think
show
that,
they usually do.
Usually they do, yeah. So I want to say that the Poindexter little boy is correct. He's another named character, but kind of most of the characters in Bart's class are pretty minor kids. They don't really have big features later on.
True. Oh man, did I just forget that? They're not even here. One sec. Oh yeah, hold on. I forgot to add one of my sound clips. I'm adding it right now because it's an important one about what we were just talking about too.
Go right ahead.
8 cars long and always carries the same number of passengers in each car. An hour later, the number of passengers equal to half the number of minutes past the hour get off.
So we might talk about that later too. We might talk about that.
You see, Davan, I was wondering about that specifically, if you'd done the math. You go, though. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't, but someone else has tried. It's incomplete, though. You can get some of the answer, but you can't get all of it. You need more variables.
Okay.
So, so Bart's not doing so well at the new school. I don't know. Here we got a picture of him here. In his class, they're laughing at him. He doesn't know
wearing a pink shirt.
He's wearing a pink shirt in a tie.
What kind of
like
lunatic is he?
I mean,
only an insane person would wear one.
Well, they do a good job of making you feel bad for him, because at first you're like, yo, whatever. You're the prankster. You switch tests. You get what you deserve. But they do a good job of making you have empathy of getting it. Like, they're real dicks to him.
Yeah.
The smart kids find out he's not smart right away. They smell him.
Oh yeah, they sniff him out like bloodhounds. I will say briefly, Martin, you were mentioning how he's a jerk in this episode. This is his just reward. Like, he is the 216 IQ student who deserved to be in that class. Like he'd probably take like a fish to water in that class. But
you know what? This actually bugs me.
Sucks to suck.
Well, no, but it bugs me about this because in the end, all Bart does is admit that he cheated. He doesn't say I switched tests with somebody.
Well, why should Bart care about Martin, right?
No, he shouldn't. But that's right. It's like it's just deserves, right? Like it
shows Bart's not a super moral person, or he is in some ways, but he definitely he only cares about bailing himself out of his bad situation in this episode.
Oh. So the Simpson family go to the opera.
Ah, yes.
And Bart and Homer are making some laughs, talking about the butt size of the matador and making fart sounds and things like that. Lisa thinks it's funny eventually. Marge is embarrassed. Classic Simpsons outing, really. And then
this is
Bart
Carmen,
runs into his
by
friends.
the way.
Yeah, were they at Carmen?
This is I don't know how to pronounce it. Georges Bizet.
Bizet.
This is a real opera that they go to, and it's advertised as tonight only in Russian, which I think is funny. Like, what does that mean exactly? Are they just like changing the languages up each time?
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's just another little absurd little like Easter egg for people that are diligently reading all the signs and little advertisements.
So Bart goes to school the next day and then doesn't do well then, but then he meets his old buddies, Richard Lewis and Milhouse, outside shooting marbles, but they treat him like a big old nerd, so
they don't want
to hang out with Bart anymore. He's got a big old brain.
Richard Lewis is friends with Bart. He's also friends with Larry David. Nice little crossover.
Richard and Lewis.
Well, it's Richard and Lewis. Okay, they're different.
Yes, Richard and Lewis.
Nah, it doesn't quite work out as well then. But
so Bart thinks about confessing, but he doesn't do it. He goes to school the next day, and they're doing chemistry experiments. Here we have it. They're like, you know what happens when you mix a base with an acid. He's like, of course I do. And he just pours them together, and boom. And that's why Bart's green in our image here.
I debated painting myself green, but it's just a lot of work to do that, folks. So I didn't.
So you just tattoo yourself green.
But you know what this reminds me of? This like blatant, like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, even though I don't, is like later when Homer has to go back to school for to get his nuclear fission like degree that he never actually had, and the guy's trying to explain it, and he's like, well, I worked in a nuclear power plant for 10 years. I think I know how a proton accelerator works, even though he has fucking no idea. And he melts
why
down
don't you come up here and show us?
Cut to everyone running
thingy for a long time.
That way, boys.
Thanks, Homer.
God, I love it.
They know who he is too.
Yeah.
We'll eventually replace him with a chicken. So there's big explosion, and so then they have Bart go meet the Dr. Pryor, and he's like, "What's the problem, Bart? You don't feel challenged enough?" And Bart's like, "Oh no, that's not the problem." He's just like, "I just want to go back to my old school." And he's just like, "Why would you want to do that?" He's just like, "Well, no, but like undercover, because I'll just like watch the dumb kids and see what what makes them tick, right?"
Yeah, his Jane Goodall.
Tell me more.
Yeah, he compares it to Jane Goodall living with the apes.
Yeah,
like, and again, you see this disdain for intellectuals, be like they're dumb enough to fall for this kind of this kind of
they're clueless,
obvious deception, right? Yeah.
It's so funny.
So
he's just like, Skinner, you just write up your proposal. It's like my what'll.
What? I have to do
the things you need, your goals, what you hope to achieve. It's like, okay. And then, he starts to write his proposal. He's like, I need this because... he's like, then he starts writing his confession.
See, but this is where we see, I don't think that Bart's dumb with a capital D. Like, we're seeing that he has, like, an overactive imagination. He has difficulty sitting down and paying attention. It's kind of like classic characteristics of ADHD or ADD, really. Like, Bart
and couldn't care less about most of the information they're trying to teach him.
Yeah, but and again, we see in later seasons, he's extremely clever when it comes to things he's interested in. When it comes to being a prankster, when it comes to him pulling off various out there deeds, he's very smart and clever. But you're not going to get him. He's not smart in sort of the archetype that society's trying to fit you into right now, right?
Yeah, he's not like his sister. Essentially, he's not musically inclined. He's not book smart.
Exactly, but he's clever and good under fire in a pinch.
Yeah, he's a smooth criminal. My first Michael Jackson reference. We'll get to Michael Jackson more. I guess I already mentioned the Bartman. So, yeah.
So then Bart eventually goes home. He confesses to his fam
after a turpentine bath.
Yeah, and he runs around with his naked butt out.
Yeah, first time Bart's naked on the show.
There he is writing his confession.
First of many.
First of many.
Exactly.
The fact that Homer teaches Bart how to put on a clip-on tie, which obviously wear a tie however you want, but in the 90s especially, I think a clip-on tie was associated with being kind of a dullard or you're not smart enough to actual
and it's almost
and not good fashion either.
Well, and it should be this sort of father-son moment where he's like, oh hey, they have ties. Oh, son, I'll teach you real quick how to tie a tie. And then he told people, here's a clip-on. You just clip it in.
Well, he teaches him how to put on a clip-on tie. He doesn't really. It's not quite the same, but So I like that little gag as well. But Bart fesses up, and then how does Homer react, Davan?
Well, he chases him. He's
Oh yeah.
He tries to wash him. He's all, and then the episode ends with him banging on Bart's door trying to get him. Which is probably not the only episode to end that way.
I think Bart's dumb again. Or no, I think Bart's stupid.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute here. First.
Send in those soulful and doleful schmotes by the bowlful.
They're already here.
Sideshow Mel. My heart is melting.
Isn't that beautiful? This is our sideshow spotlight. So there was a lot of good side characters in this episode, and some of them for the first time.
Yes.
Pick one. Who was your favorite? Who was your standout sideshow character in this episode? Start with you, Baker. Okay.
Milhouse. Gotta be Milhouse. This is not his best episode, really, but oh man, does Milhouse grow as a character. And we see a lot of great Milhouse moments down the line. I don't really know if I need to say much more than he's incredibly funny. We see Milhouse as more of a bully, kind of an equal to Bart in this episode, but we're going to establish the pecking order soon, folks. Milhouse is Bart's little yappy dog. He's his comrade. They're good friends, but also he's nerdier than Bart. We talked last episode about Kirk and about his mom and their dynamic. Great character. I love Milhouse.
Yeah, that whole family has a great growth arc as you get into some of the later seasons. For me, I'm going to go with Martin again. I mean, I mentioned this before, but you see, again, lots of times these characters show up. They're different, or they don't have the same name they have later. So Martin's Martin from the start, but he has this arrogance to him that just isn't there later. He knows he's in
for last episode.
Yeah, he knows
he's Martin.
Yeah, well, was there really? I don't recall that.
Did that count? Yeah, he has a different voice. We pointed out.
Okay,
right?
Yeah. But I mean, he knows he's smarter. He's making faces at Bart, which you'll never see later. Later, he's smart, but it's almost like he's too aloof to realize other people aren't that smart. In the Shelbyville episode, he's there trying to be buddy with Nelson, who hates him, and he just can't pick up on it. Right here, he's much more.
Summertime.
Yeah, exactly. Here, he's much more like, hey, I know I'm the smartest in the room, and I'm gonna, talk down to those who aren't, which isn't part of the character once they develop him more, right?
Yeah.
My geode must be acknowledged.
Oh man, we see archetypes for sure. Martin's such a good character too. We talked already about
gonna go with Martin, but I'm gonna go with Krabappel actually. Krabappel had a couple of sick burns in this one. Some good lines, and they pretty much nailed her character right from the start as well.
Yeah.
Like she's not going to change a whole lot. You only get one chance with Edna Krabappel.
Krabappel's excellent. She's a great character once they really get into her and like bring her along. She's hilarious, and it also is just like this stereotype of like the teacher who's just like overworked and doesn't give a fuck. Is like divorced. Is just like smokes cigarettes. Just like I don't give a damn about these kids. I'm just trying to get through the day, which is super like 80s way to think about it. You know what I mean? Like,
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Marcia Wallace, the voice actor, excellent voice actor, passed away. She's one of the characters that the show's been going on so long. She's no longer with us.
Dropping away.
They retired her character. So yeah, Krabappel, amazing character. Her name again is a pun. I love those.
Crab apple.
I've been calling her Crandall.
And we're seeing so many catchphrases. The Crandall.
What if your family don't like bread?
They like memes with Fat Maddie.
What if they like memes?
All right, you got a meme for us, right, Fat Maddie?
Yeah. The title's blocking. Yeah. I think Bart's stupid again. So you were getting at it there for a bit, Alex. The reason I picked this one is because it's the second episode and you're starting to see the structure develop. So the first episode was really extremely linear. And not that this one isn't, but like the first episode was very much like this is a story that we don't have to discount later. You know what I mean? They got the dog. The dog's part of the family. There's a bit of continuity there. This is outrageous. Bart gets thought to be a genius, goes to a different school, thinks it would massively change the storyline going forward, but they have to discount all that and bring it back to baseline zero. Yeah. And this is what you're going to see for the whole rest of the series now is things are going to get outrageous, but at the end, it has to wind up and allow them to start at that same baseline every time. And this is the first time they throw that in there, and it's going to become part of the theme. I also as we get into the episodes, we'll talk about this, but they start having that thing where like the first 5 minutes of every episode is a storyline that has nothing to do with the rest of it, but just sets up one factor that lays us. They're not there yet, but this is the first piece of structure they throw in there that like is going to define the series moving forward.
Yeah,
it's fun seeing how quickly they find their formula and their characters.
Absolutely.
Unprecedented number of talented writers all coming together at the same time. I would also like to briefly point out this episode was written by John Vitti. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. He's written a couple pretty classic episodes like Cape Fear, Mr. Plow, Bart the Lover is a great episode. There's a lot of really good episodes he's written. Also, the first episode, we didn't get a chance to talk about it very much, but the first episode was written by, I'll pull that up in a second. You guys go ahead. Oh, Mimi Pond. There we go. Mimi Pond wrote the first episode. And she never wrote another episode. Only female writer.
Putting the writer. Like I do on the X-Men show. I'll have the writer go underneath the title there. So
perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Dad.
A
little factoid for you.
Yep. Well, okay.
I watched Mr. Plow a couple nights ago, just like coincidentally.
Oh, wow. That's one of the greats.
Good too.
I
can't wait. I can't wait when we really get going into this series. It gets so crazy good.
All right, just take your seat. I even wrote theme music. There, listen. For Glaven out.
Out loud, fellas. All right, so let's talk some science here, some Glaven, if you would. So Bart's offered 72 picoliters of material from the little fella's lunch, which is
right.
A picoliter is 1/1,000,000th of a microliter. So 72 millionths of a microliter is what he gets. I think he actually gave him a bit more than he should have with those 4 drops.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But
interesting.
And Bart had to give back 4 gills worth of his lunch. And a gill in the Oxford English Dictionary is described as a measure of liquid containing 1/4 of a standard pint. And he gets 4 of those. So he's getting a pint of Bart's lunch for like what's probably even just like a drop.
I like it. Davan, did you get your dictionary from underneath the corner of your table?
Well, there's the one there, but I didn't look in it because it's propping up the table, right? I'm not gonna tip over my table just for a podcast, Baker.
You gotta have 2 dictionaries, one to look up words, another for propping things up.
There are 32 gills to a gallon. Now, I don't know if we want to get crazy into that mathematic problem, do we?
Just briefly, the animation's based on Saul Steinberg, who was a very popular New Yorker cartoonist. View from the World from 9th Avenue, I think, was his main kind of bread and butter. His main cartoon that he did. But yeah, go ahead. What's some of the mathematics there, Davan?
Oh my God, I don't know if I want to even get into it. It's too crazy.
We have it.
You know what? It's incomplete anyway. Yeah. I'm not going to get into it. It's a lot of math. I'll bore the listeners with that one. But
I just like the creepy man with the voice. He's tickets.
But
please.
Suffice it to say, if there were some more variables, it could be solvable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a farce on like we all did word problems in school, and like you know, at their level, it's like, can you filter out the information that matters and the one that doesn't? But like, it's also making fun of like when they go totally off the rails. It's like, you know, why are we testing kids on doing something they would never realistically have to like figure out in real life? Like, when would you ever do something this complicated just for the sake of doing it, right?
Wait till we get to my segment. This is what I want to talk about.
Now, obviously, there's a lot to science to choose from in this episode. The other one being the bowling ball for the feather. So that certainly suggests that the 8th moon of Jupiter has very, very little to no gravity, whereas the 2nd moon of Neptune would have a great deal of gravity, whereas the feather would fall faster than, or way more than the bowling ball.
If anyone's curious,
but I didn't get into the numbers.
No, just the 8th.
Doesn't matter. Alex is on it right now.
Pasiphae.
Professor Baker.
Oh, okay, sweet.
The
Dr.
2nd moon of Neptune.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know if the second one is actually. I mean, obviously he's referring to one of the moons, but I don't know if I can find it here. Oh, Triton. There you go. Some fun stuff for you folks.
It's Triton. Interesting. Very cool.
Triton's a fascinating moon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of them are.
We could look this id thing up in the dictionary.
Right on, Doc. Another successful diagnosis.
What's this id thing, Baker? No, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I could talk about id. I mean, we're going to talk about psychology a lot as this show goes on. And I guess what I'm talking about kind of relates to psychology. But I wanted to talk briefly about education this episode. We've already kind of hit a lot of the major points, which is that the education system we see in The Simpsons is deeply flawed. The intelligence of the different characters, their needs aren't really met. Lisa, I think, is an interesting character in this episode. She doesn't really get much attention, but we do see that she's smart, but she's not the one who is signaled out and brought to a special school. So the really gifted child is not, being properly taken care of. Martin, I guess you could also argue, because of Bart's, mischief, he doesn't get taken care of properly. And then, of course, Bart, who I don't think is a traditionally dumb with a capital D child. He's a child that has specific needs that aren't being met. And the arbitrariness, you were talking about, Francis, how arbitrary and, pointless a lot of the tasks that they're doing at school are. The aptitude test, is that really going to help determine what you're going to be later in life? Those mathematical problems, certainly if you're good at those kinds of problems, it's a useful skill. It can help you a lot. But I think there's different kinds of intelligence. And if you aren't capable of, I will just be honest, folks, my head, I felt like a cuckoo clock when that problem was being read out. So I was not following along. Different types of intelligence.
I mean, I was more like, I was always good at math in school, and I was like, yo, I can't figure it out watching this episode. But I was like, if these numbers were given to me and I had the time to sit down and pick away the numbers and write them down and do it, like it's solvable, provided that the numbers are given you aren't something that actually isn't solvable. You know what I mean? It just takes time. But again, the futility of being able to do that, like the only thing that would realistically be good for is determining that you have an aptitude that could be applied to something practical that requires that kind of skill. In and of itself, it has no use, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to wrap it up, I would just say The Simpsons is highlighting that the education system in America and Canada, I think, is quite similar in a lot of ways to the American educational system. It's flawed. It's pretty flawed. We see from Skinner, Skinner wants to offload his bad students. Krabappel is a less than ideal teacher in a lot of ways. Her kind of indifference to her students. The whole system, Melon is a melon head, or melon.
No.
So yeah, that's my thesis. That's Dr. Baker's thesis.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like in a point of a reflection of society, which we're going to see all throughout The Simpsons, it's saying that even now in '89, the futility of how the school system works is apparent to the students, to the teachers, and the only people who they try to say don't seem to get it is like the intellectual level, who are so isolated in their own world that they are like out of grasp with like the general reality, right? Even at this point, this is a caricature of a system that is so flawed that even the people in it are like, yo, I don't care. Just Krabappel not giving a fuck. Skinner wanted to offload a student even though he knows he's going to a school he can't handle. And this is, 3 decades ago, 4 decades ago?
Oh God.
Yeah.
The cruel march of time.
Pushing 4 decades.
Yeah. All right, Davan, what are we at now?
All right, well, fellas, we got to rate this episode. So we're going to do our ratings on the Krusty to Kent Brockman scale. So I figure we can rate Simpsons episodes out of 5. Do we? I don't think we need as many numbers in 10, because
it overcomplicates
quite
it.
good. So even like a 1 isn't the worst. Whereas a 1 on a out of 10 scale is bad. But so I don't know. I feel like every Simpsons episode could probably be from 1 to 5. You guys down with that?
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm good.
You guys want to go first?
So 1 being a Krusty, and a 5 being Kent Brock. He gets great ratings.
What if I think Krusty
number 1 newscast?
Okay, I see what you're getting at. Is the ratings in the show?
The ratings on TV. Nobody watches Krusty's show, but Kent gets great ratings. He's the number 1 newscast in Springfield.
We should come up with characters for the other 3 numbers. We don't have to right now, but for future episodes.
Sideshow Mel's number 1. No. So I'll give this one a 2 out of 5.
I'm going to be right there with you, buddy. I think it's 2.
Same.
It's
almost unfair to the early episodes because we know where the series goes, and if you're thinking about it in the scheme of it, like it's pretty weak compared to some season like 5, 6 stuff you see.
It's good to have that insight for these ratings.
It is though, but it's almost not fair to these early episodes because they just don't have the development. They don't have the writing isn't there. The humor isn't quite totally developed, and they're working with they're dated as well in terms of the type of humor they're portraying. It's not really a fair ranking, but I'd give them 2.
Yeah. See, I don't know what we ranked last episode. I agree that there's still dated stuff in that. I think that was a better episode. Yeah.
I was going to give it a 3.
Okay. I would give that one a 3 as well. Not a fantastic episode.
Yeah, I like the last one better too.
Okay. See, look at that. It's like we're 3 peas in a pod.
We all know our Simpsons. That's what that says.
Well, speaking
of... That's our ratings from Krusty to Kent.
I'm seeing very little ethnic variation in these ratings.
Nothing wrong with a father kissing his son, I think.
Is this also the first frosty chocolate milkshake? I think it is. We get the first. Let's all go out for some frosty chocolate milkshakes, which becomes like a relic of past Homer so much that there's even an episode where they make fun of it. Where remember the episode where Homer gets cloned a bunch of times? It's a Treehouse of Horror episode, I think. And one of the clones is Peter Griffin, and another clone is just like an old retro Homer. And he's like, "Let's all go out for some frosty chocolate milkshakes." Oh my!
Yeah. Well, we'll skip the games segment today. I don't really have a game ready for us, and Franny's sick.
Well, so and Francis
with an hour now anyway.
We can chalk him up with another W. Let's be real. Francis is Kid Gruesome. He's the guy with.
Look, I got lots of games. It's not all the same game. We'll see. You might get to scrape a couple out here, Baker. You never know. Franny's the favorite, the betting favorite.
Hey, what's this? Oh, that's the barbed wire.
The stinger.
Stinger. They don't let you do that no more.
That's one of my favorite Mo lines. Oh, that's the stinger.
Sizzlack.
So join us next week for Season 1, Episode 3, Homer's Odyssey. I like anything to do with the Odyssey. You know, Odyssey remakes, they're always good. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? That was an Odyssey remake.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
the Odyssey.
You know that I love classical Greece. My name is Greek name. I speak Greek, so you know. Kyrie, everybody. Well, Kyrie is that's like the Attic version of it. I think the common Greek version is a little different, but it means be happy.
Well, you were using an ethnic variant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Baker, you have to do the entire next episode in Greek, and we just have to try to interpret what you're saying. Or you can type it out in the chat, but you got to do it all in Greek, man. Now that I know that.
Francis, you have to sing the entire score of the HMS Pinafore.
Very well, Davan. I shall send you to heaven before I send you to hell.
Thank you. That's really nice. All right. Well, you know what? You can check this podcast out on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. You can contact us at KBBBL podcast@gmail.com. In the audio only version is available wherever you get your podcast. That's not quite true yet, as Sam points out in the comments. He couldn't find us on Google.
We're getting
working
there,
on
folks.
it. Well, no, there's a whole thing you got to go through to get them on all the platforms. I'm slowly getting us onto more and more of them. So eventually you'll find us in more places. But we're around. We're on Spotify. I think we're on Apple now. I might need
check out my Instagram, folks. Follow my odyssey of tattoo getting and my animals that I post videos of feeding and all the fun stuff we do at the museum.
Definitely. Send me that and I'll make a banner out of it for next episode. You're like...
Ooh, fun. I love banners.
Yeah, do that. So we're a proud member of the United Federation of Podcasts. Speaking of that United Federation, fellas, but there's lots going on in the United Federation of Podcasts. Murphy and I just did a hold-up episode on environmentalism movies. 2 of them were anyway. Then there was the one Murphy picked that had nothing to do with it. But, you know, Murphy has apologized profusely for that to the listeners and myself because it was a bad movie as well. I Heart Huckabees, don't watch it. Spoiler alert on that hold-up episode.
I feel like you're just trying to work on Murphy when he can't respond.
No, Murphy's always watching. You can't get anything past Murphy. He's the overseer of this whole federation now. He watches us all like a hawk, I tell you.
It's the eye of the sky.
Also check out my X-Men podcast with Andre Mayet, X-Rated the X-Men animated review show. We just finished season 3, Love in Vain, and in a couple weeks we have an interview with Allison Seeley-Smith, the voice of Storm, coming up. I'm super looking forward to that. My love of awesome. Storm knows no bounds. Also check out my co-host Graphic History on that show, Andre's Graphic Histories podcast. He just released an episode today, his interview with Jason Liu. I'm almost all the way through it. It's a good interview. I'll check it out.
Liu, that's cool.
Yeah. You have Chapter House, Marvel Comics, a lot of things like that. Super Mater Brothers, check them out. They do your reality show reviews. They're just finishing up Survivor, I believe. I'm not sure what they're doing after that.
Do you know? You don't know what season? Is it the newest season? Probably.
Yeah, they follow it like that day. So they're your quick up-to-date reviews. Well, go back into their back catalog, man. They probably got it. They have old seasons done too. And also check out Live Long and Podcast, where we do all the Star Trek cool stuff, because we love Star Trek over here at the United Federation of Podcasts, believe it or not. There's the Command Division. They do the reviews of the shows. We have the Ops Division. We do Star Trek Radio Theater. Then there's the Science Division, where I launch probes. We debate. We discuss. And, of course, there's the Locutors of Trek Audio Podcast with me and Dave. And, we do a bunch of crazy stuff over there. Actually, we got a Geek Tall Challenge coming up here on Sunday, where the Klingon host Galrod, son of Galron, who looks somewhat like me, coincidentally,
like it,
will host 2 Klingon challengers in a battle to the death. Neither of them was killed last time. This is a rematch, because it was only decided by a single honor point. I didn't feel I should kill either of them. Though this time, someone will probably be killed.
Okay, exciting. I like that.
What leaders? Who was fighting?
It was the Battle of the Daves.
Oh, okay. Not
Huxley versus Dave.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think it was like characters from the show. My bad.
No. The host is a Klingon, and those two are trying to prove their Klingon worthiness in trivia and other challenges. Also, check out Trivial Debates. There was just an episode of that I hosted, where it was the music edition. That was a really close one, too. Check it out. And there's one coming up soon. It's the Christmas edition, where I will be a contestant, and Cousin Dave will be the host, and I will be facing off against Max Duda and Sterling Slowcock Bennett, all the way from Australia. No Australia handicaps. We all start at 0. Remember that, Dave, if you're listening. And also check out the newest member of our federation, the Hellbound Podcast, a horror movie podcast with Alex Blackburn and Michael Chan. Check it out.
This one.
We got lots going on over here in the United Federation. And
I checked them out, actually. They're good.
Oh,
so yeah, that's it. All righty, everybody. Thanks again for tuning
everybody. Yeah, we'll catch you next time.
You're not going anywhere until you tell me what a quidgy is.
Quidgy.
Okay. So apparently we're not going anywhere until we explain. No, you know what? Let's get out of here.
We know what a quidgy is. It's a word Bart made up to get out of doing Scrabble. So we can say it's a word that we made up to get out of doing this podcast, because we're over time already.
You heard it here first, people.
KBBBL Podcast. Where the extra B is for BYOBB.
Where's my elephant?